So yeah, I'm the customer liaison officer for Greenbelt, and Robin, he's been the sales and development guy who's been dealing with a lot of this development. So it might be as well to incorporate him in any conversations tonight, because he's pretty clued up on the development. He's been there since its birth. Okay. So what was your question? Was it with regards to the phase 1 development?
So sorry, to clarify, Nick, do you have a presentation to give us, or are you just taking questions and answers? Because if
we have
so,
got a presentation. Yeah, we have got a presentation.
Okay.
Would John be able to show that on the screen?
Okay, great.
Is John able to share it?
Yeah, John, are you putting this up? Sorry, everybody, we're just still working the new thing out.
If not, I could try and share my screen. Will we do that?
Yes, let's try that.
Okay. I'm going to stop that. Sorry.
We need John. John's got this. I sent the presentation down to John last week, so and I just spoke to him while we've been here and said, would you be able to show it? So I'm not sure if he can hear us or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's got internet problems or something himself, because he's not.
Well, why don't we? Could we just
if you talk through it?
Let's just talk through the development.
Sorry, I realised I was left myself on mute. Sorry, I'm having a few difficulties trying to get it up and running. My computer's running a bit slow and it's frozen, so I can't get it to come up, I'm afraid. So please talk, and if I manage to get it to come up, I will share it.
Okay. Thanks, John. Well, we'll just go. Nick, do you want to? I mean, really, from our perspective, Greenbelt is still in a position where we're not quite yet on the park, i.e. we're not yet managing areas of open space just yet, but very close to doing that. We've been working with L&Q for several years now, preparing all the various areas, measuring them up and getting ready for getting them costed up for maintenance. So here's the presentation here. So
yeah, here it is. Yeah,
we've looked at the development in two sections, or two typologies essentially. The light green areas that you see on this very small plan of the site are all the infrastructure open space areas on the site. And those areas comprise of structural woodlands, existing hedgerows, new woodland planting, drainage basins, walkways, equipped play areas, sports pitches, a whole gamut of features that we will be responsible for. Now, those comprise the infrastructure areas. Now, there is a charge that all residents at Northstowe will be asked to contribute towards, except I think the housing association plots for these light green areas on this plan. So, and that charge currently is sitting at £96 per plot. So all private plots at Northstowe Phase 1 will pay that for all those light green areas shown on the plan. Now, individually, each house builder parcel will have its own internal open space, and those areas have been costed up separately, and each house owner will also be responsible for contributing for the upkeep of those internal open space areas. Now, these plans are just too small to show each individual area, but each house owner will get two plans. One, a copy of this plan that you see in front of us, and then also a phase-specific plan, which is a blow-up, a much more detailed depiction of their particular phase and all the internal open space that's on their particular phase. Now, depending on what phase you're in, what developer's building your phase, it will depend on what open space you've got. So it may be just simple amenity open space between parking bays to shrub beds to local areas of play. In some phases there's hard standing, parking bays, parking courts, but it varies from phase to phase. Now, we will be accessing all these phases in due course, and we're in the process of doing that. And then when we do that, myself and Nick, more probably Nick being the community liaison officer, will meet with each phase individually and separately to go into more detail about how Greenbelt operate, just
to give Robin a bit more insight. What will happen is eventually, when, like Robin correctly says, we get each developer section comes over, I will meet with that phase, go down and give information relevant to that phase. The other thing is, I've noticed a couple of questions that have come up. Has VAT been applied? VAT will be applied on top of that figure, I think, at the moment, isn't it, Robin? That's just a basic figure because somebody's asked if VAT will be applied. Yes, also, indexation will have been applied. So whenever they bought their property or moved in, indexation will be applied until we start the billing date with the residents. So as I understand it, like Robin's already pointed out, there's two charges, one to L&Q, one then for the individual areas that we're going to manage and maintain for that developer. Okay. I think just quickly as well, there was a couple of questions that I received from John the other week. One question was, some residents thought they'd already been paying towards the annual management charge and they thought Greenbelt were on site. Well, like Robin's just pointed out quite correctly, we're not on site yet. And if any residents have paid any fees, and we're pretty sure that that's just been collected by their conveyancing solicitors, that'll be put in a pot. And basically when the developer is ready to hand over that phase, then funds then will be transferred to us and it'll be deducted subsequently from their bills. Is that correct, Robin?
That's right, yeah.
We have got another bit more of the presentation. If you want to move on to the next slide, we can do. I don't know if you want to discuss the two ponds at the bottom, Robin. Did you want to mention the two ponds on that slide?
Not specifically. I think that it's just important to stress just that these areas are going to take a bit of time to establish. Most of them are very well stocked, but we're going through a process with L&Q to look at the first tranche of open space areas within the infrastructure to be handed over. Now, we're anticipating that will take place in March of this year, and it will be concentrating on open spaces up towards the village end of the site, up towards the sports pitches and the Kingfisher Pond. So yeah, there's a lot still to do, but in terms of,
I think the aim is for March, but it's not set in stone because with the situation with what's happening at the moment and other things, it could well go past that date. It's just a date that we're all looking for at the moment. And, it could be before, it could be after, but it's just a date at the moment that we're looking at, I think. So if you want to move on to the next slide. So it's just a little bit about Greenbelt and actually what we do. We are a national leader in landscape management. We have over 60,000 residents now up and down the country. And Robin will tell you he deals with main developers, small developers every single day. Taylor Wimpey, all of the ones that are on your development we deal with. And we actually give them a bespoke service. That's what we try to do. We try and bespoke it for the components that are on that development. We have a year-round maintenance program as well, which is there for the benefit of the residents and obviously for the ecological integrity of the development. All the residents will get basically as well is regular visits. So from April to October, where there's amenity space, etc., a fortnightly visit, and at least one visit in the winter months going through from November to March. So we do try to give that regular service. Okay, so if you want to move on to the next slide. So as I was just saying, the green space model, it does deliver a service tailored for the development. It's very bespoke. So if you have just got open spaces or car parking spaces or shrub beds, then we will be managing and maintaining them. If it's play areas, it just depends what areas will be coming over and how they'll be maintained. Substantial urban drainage systems are another thing that we have. We have specialists on that, and we do have professionals in all of the areas that we work with. All of our contractors that we will use, because it would be a subcontractor who will manage and maintain the development, he will have to satisfy a pre-qualifying questionnaire. Okay. We do, as I say, moving on, we do ensure that we have a dedicated customer care support system. There'll be a phone number when you get the introduction pack. All of the information of the services that Greenbelt provide will be on there, as well as the customer care information. Everything is down there as well. We also have lots of things in place. If you have any issues, please contact us. We want to talk to you. We want to sort any issues out with you. But we also have something called primary authority status. Primary authority status, that means that we work with Glasgow City's Council Trading Standards if there's ever any issues. And it works very, very well. We've also got the financial ombudsman, but all of these things are in place to reassure and to satisfy residents. You know, we don't want them to feel they're marooned and they've got nowhere to go. But what would happen is, in the first instance, you've got myself, the customer care department, and a dedicated customer care charter. So these things are all there to make sure the long-term management of the development, you know, is done correctly. Moving on, if you want to. So, just as we were saying earlier, we do have a network of approved contractors and suppliers. They would have to fill in a pre-qualifying questionnaire, code of conduct for all of the contractors as well. We expect them to adhere to a code of conduct. We have site supervision. So we'll have an operations manager who will be accustomed to that, well, will be assigned, sorry, to your development. And he will visit at least once a month, every month, to make sure everything is being managed and maintained as it should be. Also the play equipment and anything else of the components of your development. Real-time reporting, which works really well, by the way. That basically means that the contractor and the operations manager will real-time report where they're on site. So you've got that report and you know it's there. The customer liaison, that comes through me. And then obviously, as I just mentioned to you before, we've got the customer care team who are dedicated. You can contact them via email, or you can contact them via the telephone number that's provided. When we do start billing the development, there'll be provision of a detailed maintenance schedule and a guide to all of the components on the development. What we can't give is visit dates, because we're just unable to, because of weather conditions, because it is a question I get quite often. We don't give visit dates. What we do say is that you should expect to visit around every fortnight, depending on the components of what you have in your areas. You would also receive a written statement of service, and that will highlight the components, and that will identify the service that you will get. Okay. Next slide, please. So just moving on, the annual management charge, we've left it with question marks, but that reflects the individual contribution to the management of the development. Robin's pointed out some rough figures at the moment. As I say, indexation is applied, but when it comes to the stage of billing for the development, everything will be broken down. I always say to all residents, please remember indexation is applied, because quite often a question we get is, we were told it's going to be £40 or £50 and now it's 60, 65. That's purely because indexation has been applied to that original cost that you were given. Okay, and as it goes on to say there are any increases, normally it's tied to current inflation rates. And we do offer a flexible range of payment options. So that's direct debit. It can be paid monthly. It can be paid in one go, whichever suits anybody. We also have a paperless billing system now as well. It only gives a small reduction, but it is there for the residents if they want to use paperless billing. And we do try and encourage that now as well. Okay, next slide. So there's just some contact details. At the moment, that's with the customer care charter can be downloaded at www.greenbelt.co.uk. The customer care phone number's on the right hand side. I would say at the moment there's no need to probably contact it because we're not on site anyway. If anybody does have any questions or queries, please either come to myself and I will always look to try and answer them. But what I will tell you is once we get to the stage that we actually are starting to build the residence, then you will get more information about the service that we provide, and we will go from there. Okay, Robin, do you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if there's any other questions that come out of the following, the forum later on, then I'm happy to expand on any points that may come out as a result.
Great, thanks guys. We've actually got quite a few coming through out of the various channels.
Just see them.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Lorna's question first. Is the phased implementation of the cost applicable for the upkeep of the green spaces? I.e., if the communal or green space is not actually functional at the moment, are you still expected to pay the full cost of management from day one?
No, it will be proportionally adjusted to reflect the areas that we have actually accessed. Each resident will also get, at the point of billing, a site plan, and that site plan is two-toned. Dark areas, dark green areas indicating the areas that we have accessed and that we're asking residents to start contributing towards, and light green areas indicating the areas that we've still to access. And so we hope that that makes it quite clear, and so the bill will be proportionally adjusted to suit that scenario.
Thank you. Question from John. Why are the housing association properties not contributing to the upkeep of the green spaces? Did I understand correctly?
Well, I think originally they managed, I don't know, it was contracted out originally right from the words, right at the beginning of the development, the housing association weren't going to contribute to infrastructure open space. However, they do contribute to internal open space. So that the BPHA will resident or shared owners and tenants, or all those plots will actually contribute to internal open space within actual phased areas of development.
Okay, so to clarify, what would count as an internal open?
Yes,
space?
so within each development parcel, it's given a reference number. H1 is H1, I think, is the Bloor phase. H2 is, I think, Barrett, David Wilson's, or Barrett, Essex and Chelmsford. Taylor Wimpey, I think, in phase 3. Now, any resident that lives, say, on, for example, the Bloor phase will pay not only the infrastructure fee for the wide open space areas throughout the development, but they will also pay this individual phase fee. So any open space that sits within that Bloor phase will be calculated, is measured, and it's calculated separately. So each phase of development has its own phase individual area, phase cost of open space management as well. And it varies from phase to phase as to what that actually is.
And for the BPHA tenants, is that a management charge that they pay, or by the rent that they pay to BPHA? So is it BPHA that's paying, or the tenants themselves?
Yes, if it's tenant, yes, it depends. BPHA may well say, if it's shared ownership, just issue bills to the owner of the property. But if it's a rented property, it will go to the housing association.
Okay, and I think you covered this on the slides, but just to double check, the fee that you quoted is including VAT?
No, these fees exclude that.
Exclude. It's just the flat at the moment. The VAT will be added to that at the time. So the figures at the moment are minus the VAT.
Minus the VAT. Okay, thank you. A question from Hannah. As more houses go up, does that mean the price goes down? And do we get a waiver of the fees if the overgreen areas or cycle paths and drains are not being looked after?
Do you want to do that one, Robin, or me?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Well, in terms of proportion, no, the costs that have been calculated are based on all plots contributing. So, so in answer to the first part of that question, no, more units is not going to mean Unless there's more units. We've calculated these costs based on 1,300, I think, and 1,325 private units contributing. If for any reason that figure goes up, say for example it goes up to 1,300 or 1,400, say 1,400 units, yes, then we'll recalculate. But at the moment it's based on 1,325. What was the second part of the question?
Each residence fee has been agreed in the covenant that will be in their deed. So it'll be that every household will have a set, like, was it around £96 for the infrastructure? And then the extra fee will be for each developer's section subplot as you go around there. So it will all be explained in the covenant of the deeds, but there's no deduction or as extra properties are built. It just means that each property has that tied into its covenant to contribute towards the open spaces of that area.
Okay.
Sorry, the second part of that question. Yes. So, for example, sometimes when we have inclement weather, or if for any reason areas cannot be maintained and we cannot get in to access them, then residents will get a rebate. You know, we will not charge for not being able to do works.
That's right. And just to let you know as well, the bill is an actual anticipated cost. So the first year's billing that you get is an anticipated estimated cost. It's very similar, I always say, to your gas and electric bill. And then at the end of that first billing year, what will happen, you'll have a full breakdown of the costs, all of the contractor's costs, and there's no makeup or markup charge or anything like that on the contractor's costs. We only supply the cost to the residents that he supplies to us. And all of the admin costs, everything is broken down for all of the residents to see. So, you know, we try and be as transparent as we possibly can. And there's also further information on the back of the bill to explain if there's been any site snagging and any other costs that have been related to the development. Okay.
Okay. Question from Richard about the ponds, I think that you showed. They are marked to be managed by Greenbelt, but they're actually going to be managed by others, including South Cams. Are they charging for those?
This is the Hatton. Well, there's various ponds within the main body of the site. A large number of ponds are going to be towards the end, the water park area, towards the western end area shaded. Well, it's to the other end of the site. Is going to be managed by Anglian Water largely. The off-site ponds, the Hatton ponds, we've indicated them. There's a small element of that £96 dedicated to maintaining the peripheral areas. Now, at the moment, it's being discussed that maybe Longstanton Parish Council may take on those areas around the ponds, in which case we would readjust the bill. So at the moment, we're showing them as an insert on this plan until we get a definitive response as to what's actually happening. This insert on this plan will just stay on it for just now.
Okay. Question from Farouz. Farouz runs North Stowe Foodies, which is our food trucks. We're assuming that you will consent to the current arrangements with L&Q that we have, that the food trucks and other stores on the square and green, as we currently have no amenities on site. So that effectively the trucks can still continue to use the green. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, at the moment, this got raised, I think, late last week from L&Q. Yeah, we're happily allow this to continue. It seems a good idea. What what we've got to do going forward, though, is just manage the ongoing use of that square and just make sure that all residents are happy for that service to continue. What we need to be also aware of that the local square after heavy use will require extra cleaning, probably extra litter picking. If power is being drawn from the power sources there, then that will have a cost on electricity as well. So we've got to be careful. We've got to be upfront and transparent as to what those costs are with all the residents. So it's just to say, yes, in principle, we are absolutely happy for that that event to carry on. Absolutely. It's just that we've just got to make everyone aware that there will be costs associated with it. Now, spread amongst 1,325 units, I would imagine it would be very, very, very small, and will
and the benefit that an event like that will have will probably outweigh the small increment in cost to residents, but it's something that we've just got to bear in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Just very quickly going forward, it's my job to try and work with residents associations. So what I want to try and do is to build up relationships, obviously, either individually with each developer's section, be it Taylor Wimpey, Linden Homes, whichever one it is, or as a overall committee, because it would be good to meet occasionally to see, and you know, we will help to see if we can support certain events during the year, etc., if that's required, because you know that's what we want to do, to get communities going and be involved with them. So you know, be assured with that, and that's part of my role as well. Okay.
Yeah, but just to advise that, sorry, the food trucks, just because you obviously don't, they come every week, so we have a food truck pretty much most days of the week. So it's not like a single one-off event where we have a load of food trucks. It's actually a regular. Question from Dan. Nick, the way you're speaking suggests it's not defined what you'll be taking on. Therefore, how did the cost get derived?
Say that again.
Yeah.
The way you're speaking suggests it's not defined that you'll be taking on. Therefore, how did the cost get derived?
No, the areas have been defined. So, unfortunately, well, what you see in front of you is a very diagrammatical plan of the site. Each area has been carefully designed, so there's detailed plans for each area that's shaded light green on this site, and indeed detailed plans for all the small areas of open space within each development phase 2. So these areas are all carefully calculated, they're all measured, cross-referred to landscape plans that have been approved by the local planning authority. And so so each area is considered. It's definitely not a case that they're not defined. They are very defined.
Okay, thank you. And this may be a question about how you get things handed over, but there's concern that the fee doesn't go towards clearing drains that currently developers have failed to clear. So there must be a process for you guys before you take on responsibility.
Yeah. So the handover process is fairly thorough with the developer. Not only will it be thorough with L&Q, but it will be thorough with the individual house builders too. And quite often there's frequent visits to site just to make sure that areas that were identified at pre-handover have been dealt with. Now, sometimes some remedial works that do get identified are seasonal dependent. So, for example, if there's some woodland planting that needs to be gaps or infilled, that can only really take place in the winter months. Now, if handover, or certainly if we have a handover meeting in the summer and that is identified, then we will have to wait until the winter months, and same applies to grass seeding in the winter if we take access or look at areas in the winter. So handover, it can sometimes become quite protracted, but we try and work with the developers just to make sure that we take on as much as we can. The sooner we engage with residents, the better. The sooner we can get residents contributing, albeit a small amount at first, it is far better than waiting till the development's finished. The sooner we can get areas accessed, and then we can say to residents, look, these areas are now free for you to use. You have they're there to be enjoyed. Please go ahead and enjoy them. We will be issuing all residents, as I said before, a plan which clearly shows the areas we will be asking them to pay for. There will be areas shaded light green that will not be asked. They will not be asked to pay for, while we are still waiting for remedial works to be done. So it should be fairly clear to all residents.
If there are already remedial works that are not identified, normally it will always be the developer that will pay for them. They may instruct us to carry out the works, or they may carry that out themselves, but there shouldn't be a charge to the residents in that instance. It's the remedial works would be a separate thing altogether. Okay.
Thank you. Jason's question, can we see how the money's being spent and used annually via release of full accounts?
Robin?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we have each site, we keep a record of all the contractors' invoices. And as Nick was saying, the bill is broken down and it's very transparent. So yeah, I mean, we try and we vet our contractors. The real-time reporting always keeps a tab on what they're doing versus what the schedule and the specifications that they've been asked to abide by are being followed through. So we're always checking them. They're being scored by the site supervisor too. So they've got to make sure that their standard workmanship is maintained throughout the year. And obviously the contracts get renewed I think it's every 2-3 years. So they want to be in a position, our contractors want to be in a position so those contracts can get renewed. So we tend to get a good service as a result.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I think there's a little bit of confusion about your answer to if there were additional houses, whether or not there would be a decrease in the fee. Could you just clarify again what you said?
So at the moment, it is envisaged, well, our cost for the infrastructure open space areas, as shown as light green on the screen just now, is based on 1,325 contributing units across Northstowe Phase 1. Now, if for any reason, now it looks like that number will be met, but occasionally on some sites of this size, that number can go up. You know, it can go up. It could go up to 1,350 units, or it may even come down. Who knows? We may not get to 1,325 units, but we will have to readjust. We will readjust based on how many units are actually built and occupied at the end of the development. We will make that adjustment to suit.